When we think of iconic shows, the likes of The Sopranos, Breaking Bad and The Wire come to mind. Driven by anti-heroes, these shows kept us on the hook through the devious appeal of wrongdoing. But one show really comes to mind above all else: Dexter. Airing back in the good old days of the mid-2000s, Dexter Morgan, the serial killer Miami Metro blood splatter analyst, diced up bodies quicker than justice could. It was one of the first mainstream shows where the bloke we were supposed to like was as psychotic as they could come. And with the show back on Netflix, it's clear that the directors at the media conglomerate made the right call. I don't know about anyone else, but for me, Netflix has been feeling a little like a barren desert where hallucinations of mirages rarely even occur. Recently, the only thing Netflix have released that I've watched and thought was actually good was The Gentleman. And that came out quite a while ago now, relatively speaking. So bringing Dexter back is a lifeline that the streaming service actually needed, in my humble opinion. I mean, comparatively, Prime have been killing it. Fallout was a hit, Clarkson's Farm Season 3 is out, and The Boys Season 4 is soon to release. It actually feels like Prime give you your money's worth. So why then is Dexter such a lifeline for Netflix? Well, for a start, Dexter has a pretty solid place in pop culture history.
Surprise, motherfucker!
Yup, that 2013 meme came from this show. And I can say that for a prolonged period of time, 11-year-old kids would think uttering this made them the funniest person in a 5-mile radius. But memes aside, Dexter was an original piece of screenwriting that has remained rewatchable to this day. It's the daddy of shows like You that's only gotten even more suspenseful. For me, I think it's the fact that Dexter is constantly so close to the danger that this show continues to be so engaging. I mean, Dexter is simultaneously helping people try to catch the bad guy, whilst also trying to catch the bad guy himself, and even for a while being the bad guy that Miami Metro want to catch. It's all very bad guyception if you ask me, but it's nonetheless very appealing in the show. Dexter's chameleon-like ability to seem like a Joe Schmo in a police HQ means that even in a pack of sheep, his wolf-like nature can blend in. Laughing at Masuka's creepy jokes or banishing around with Batista, he seems to many like a relatively normal bloke. But though his camouflage is good, he is not entirely invisible. Sergeant Dokes' suspicion of Dexter and his numerous near-miss encounters whilst doing semi-legal activities in his department, like hacking email accounts and stealing evidence, keep the heart rate elevated at every turn in the show. And much like Game of Thrones, Dexter also enjoys the tendency of switching up the character cast by offing several people each season. In all likelihood, if you found yourself a favourite character, the chances are they'll be gone in a couple of seasons. And much like Thrones, the switch-up keeps it interesting, because with each new person comes a new hurdle for Dexter, be it a lover, a companion, or a worthy adversary. Now, I'll be the first to admit, there are some ups and downs to this series as you may make your way through it that seem to come with the new cast members, as sometimes they just don't pull their weight. But hey, you can always look at Dexter on a series-by-series basis, and if you do, then my god will you find some good stuff to watch. And it is with the changing seasons that we see some change in Dexter too. In the early seasons, we learn of Harry's code and how Dexter must be truly regimental in adopting it in order to avoid capture. But just like life, Dexter's career path is one that is fraught with challenges that sometimes require a little bit of wiggle room to get around. We see him have to develop and slowly change these tenets as we see him try to protect what he cares for, which in some cases goes beyond himself. We see someone who we take to be an unemotional, cold-hearted killer, develop affection for his family and his effective stepkids. It's juxtapositions like this that really keep up engagement with the show as we see times change for Dexter. But perhaps above all, what makes Dexter such a great show is the continual proposition of the nature versus nurture question. Shows that have a few layers to them always seem to resonate with me much more than those that do not, and I'm sure many of you can attest to that as well. Examining and exploring a deeply psychological question right from the outset of the show adds depth that many other recent crime series seem to glaze over. We are told that Dexter is the way that he is because he was quite literally born into blood at the sight and slaughter of his mother and father. Harry takes him in, but it quickly becomes clear that there will be some lasting effects from this trauma that Dexter has suffered. As a man concerned with doing good, Harry is faced with a dilemma: do away with Dexter, or try to put him on the right path and effectively reform him. And though Dexter exhibits desires to hurt creatures and eventually people, it is with Harry's guidance that he steers him away from all the quote-unquote evil and makes Dexter as good of a man as he can be. And it is here that a further interesting question is raised. How does society deal with a serial killer? The pretext of the show is, in a way, that Dexter is in some sense rehabilitated. He has conditions and burdens of proof that must be met in order to allow him to hurt the people who hurt people, and I think this is about as close to resolving his condition as an institution might ever get. I mean, his impact on the world is, arguably, a net positive. He's reducing the number of deadly criminals series by series, saving lives, and in some cases rescuing people from monsters. Harry was able to steer Dexter away from becoming one of his own victims. In some sense, Dexter does do good. But the show leaves this question very much up in the air at times. It looks at the conflict between taking an absolute approach relative to each individual situation. And it's why the show is just so good in the early seasons. Now, yes, the ending of Dexter is, well, perhaps a little underwhelming. The disappointing ending of Dexter New Blood perhaps confirms the fact that Dexter seems perpetually bound to avoid a good ending. But as Game of Thrones taught us, you do not need the show to have a good ending to still have amazing individual series that come before it. I mean, to me, Game of Thrones seasons 1 through 6 will always remain some of the most riveting television I will have ever watched, and I think there are a lot of parallels that can be drawn from this experience to Dexter. So, if you've got a Netflix subscription and are wondering what to delve in and out of this summer, Dexter is a fantastic place to start. But I'm interested to see what you have to think about the show down in the comments below. And thank you for watching.